406.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 411 from 406. My name is Chewie, and I am joined once again from my brother from another mother, Mr. Pip. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, sir. It's good to be back in
Good.
podcasting land. It feels like we took another semi-long break. Had lots of stuff going on, but I'm glad to get back in the saddle.
Yeah, so this will be episode number 91.
Oh,
So we are marching slowly but surely towards that number 100. I think it's probably fair to say we'll knock it out this year. Episode 90 was our big WrestleMania recap. Did you watch Backlash?
I did watch Backlash, and I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. I
What'd
actually
you think?
thought it was I liked it. I thought it was one of the better PLEs that's not one of the Grand Slams. It wasn't WrestleMania, it wasn't Royal Rumble, Survivor Series, or SummerSlam, but I thought it was good. Like it
Yeah.
helped. It helped fill in some gaps, I think, a little bit, and the matches were pretty decent. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't too bad. I sort of expect there to be a significant lull after the magnitude of a WrestleMania, and I
Yeah.
don't think this was it. I think this is helping to pick up steam a little bit for the company and kind of keep this momentum that they have from WrestleMania rolling pretty well. But what about you?
I did not watch it that night. I was or that day, right? It was in France, so it was like in the middle of the afternoon, right? Like 3 o'clock, four
Correct.
o'clock, something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. So I did not watch it live. I was actually camping with my son. It was his 10th birthday, and we had a Cub Scout camp out. So I didn't watch it live. And I also did not sit down and watch it straight through, but I have seen it all. I here's what I'll say about that show. I think I agree. It was a top to bottom. I think it was a good show. There was very few points where I felt it was quote unquote filler. The crowd was electric the whole night. I thought Jay Uso's entrance was amazing. I mean, and like the crowd was now granted they were chanting in French, so I had no idea what they were saying, but like the top to bottom, the whole show, they were on fire. And I can only imagine that's just because they don't get that many pay-per-views in France. I think this was the first one ever. But I thought it was a good show. I don't think I was necessarily surprised by any of the outcomes. What we had one title change, the women's title, that one seemed to kind of make sense. I thought the AJ Cody Rhodes match was good, very good in terms of a wrestling match. No surprise there. I didn't think there was a chance in hell AJ would win the title, especially coming off the story that that was the only kind of down, like to me, I don't think Cody has a chance of losing that belt before, no chance before SummerSlam. I think he'll keep it at least through WrestleMania would be
Oh,
my
for
guess,
sure.
but
Yeah,
you know,
I would definitely agree with that. I don't think they're gonna. I mean, they can't go through that effort to build up that
to
story
throw
with
it away.
Roman and just
Yeah.
like trash it after that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would agree. I think that match was pretty good. The Bailey and Naomi and Tiffany Stratton match was surprisingly good. I thought that was a nice little triple threat match for the title. And the women's tag match was okay. There's something about Jade Cargill that kind of I don't know
You know what?
about her yet. Like she looks great, but
Yeah.
also she looks like she doesn't know how to emote properly. Like she's just got this sort of blank stare. I made this comment the other day to somebody at work. I said she looks like, remember in like the early 2000s when Madden football was super popular and every face on every player looked exactly the same and they just kind of had these wide eyes and they just looked frozen all the time. Like that's what she makes me think of. I don't know why, but I just think that she's not good at the character development part
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah, and she almost, and you'll get this reference. She almost looks like a older version of Laura Croft. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like before the video game engine was as good as they are now. Like she's ripped and she's cut and she looks great. But yeah, to your point, she's a little bit like robotic. Yeah, and I can't put my finger on what it is. She's crazy talented. Like you could, it's obvious. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I thought maybe the reason I wasn't connecting with her was I don't particularly care for tag team wrestling, and that's kind of the programs that she's been in. But that's interesting that you sounds like have similar feelings about her that I do. Like you just there's something about it that you just can't kind of put your finger on. And she's good, but you're not quite sure what it is. So,
It's
anyways,
the charisma.
um,
I think she lacks
yeah,
charisma. I think
yeah,
she has the physical charisma, but when it comes to I don't think I've even heard her talk yet. So like she's gonna need a manager, I feel like, to be sort of the talk box for her when she, does interviews and all that stuff. So I don't know.
yeah.
We'll see what happens.
I don't want to dwell too much on wrestling just because we talked about WrestleMania for almost 2.5 hours the last time, but I think we got to touch on SummerSlam,
Mm,
and then we can move on to some other non wrestling topics here this evening. SummerSlam is in Cleveland this year. It is on August 3rd, which happens to be my wife's birthday, which she is overly thrilled about, I'm sure, as you can imagine. She did give me the free pass to go, so I give her a ton of credit and I thank her for that. WWE is not making it easy for me to go to that show though. I mean, I don't know. You want to talk? I know you have a seething hatred for Ticketmaster. Do you want to go on a Ticketmaster WWE rant for a minute?
Christ. If I could give them some sort of an F5 right now, I certainly would. Yeah, my longstanding issues with Ticketmaster continue after the events of the last few days. Because you and I and your brother were all trying to secure 3 seats to go to SummerSlam. Being in Cleveland and being close to me and obviously very close to you, it was super exciting to learn this news because, it's been how many years since we went to a wrestling event together? When was that in your house with Mankind and the Undertaker? Was that 30 years ago? Or it's approaching 30. I don't think it was 30, but it was pretty close. It was probably like 27, 28 years ago. And I just think it would be a great sort of addendum to our story. We love wrestling. We always get together for WrestleMania when we're able to, and to be able to go to something like SummerSlam would be absolutely fantastic. And there were probably no less than 5 or 6 pre-sales, different pre-sales offered through different programs to get tickets for the show. And every single time there were 30,000 people in line in the virtual queue ahead of us, which is something I've never seen in my entire life. And by the time we did get through, the only tickets that were left were extraordinarily expensive. So this event takes place in the Cleveland Browns Stadium, and the seats that I saw today at the general on sale in the very top level, some of them were going for $800 a piece. The platinum seats, and it's just like, for what? For $800? I mean, can you imagine what you would get if you spent $800 at any other concert or any other event? It
Oh,
would it would almost guarantee you a seat in the first 10 rows. I mean, for almost anybody that I
yeah.
would go see anyways. So yeah, presale after presale, I think we were consistently disappointed with the pricing. I'm sure there's some dynamic pricing that's going on. The WWE has clearly figured out where they can charge higher prices based on the seats in these arenas, based off of the obstructed views that are created by the pillars that hold the whatever the roof over the ring to keep the performers, in the best elements as possible. So those will cause some obstructed views, and they're definitely, price gouging around all of those. And it was severely disappointing because I got the free pass too. I was 100% planning on coming out, and I still am, coming out to Cleveland, and but I expected to come out with some tickets in hand and that we were going to go to the show. And right now we're completely empty-handed.
Yeah, so again, you and Mark and I talked about kind of what we would be willing to spend, and it was not we haven't found tickets for that we're willing to spend. I guess at this point, we could certainly go down there day of or week of and see if we can scalp tickets. And worst case scenario, we can, go down there and watch it at a bar, or come to my house and, sit outside on the patio and watch it there. Yeah, I don't know. So it's going to be interesting. The good news is we will watch some wrestling live that weekend. Did get tickets for SmackDown the night before, which happens to be my birthday, on Friday evening at the Rocket Mortgage Field House, and we're going to be sitting in a suite, which is going to be pretty fucking cool. I'm
That's
very much
awesome.
looking forward to that. Yeah, so
That is
the
super
suites
cool.
in yeah the suites in Rocket Mortgage Field House are going to be about eye level with the ring. So
Wow.
they are actually the closest suites in the NBA of any NBA stadium. They're the closest suites to the court, which is pretty cool. I've actually Mark and I actually sat in those suites for the very last appearance on pay-per-view of the Shield. If that gives you any, I don't remember when
Wow.
that was. So yeah, so I'm very much looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to you know you coming into town for that weekend,
Yes.
and we will figure out something for SummerSlam. But we will know what we're doing the night before for the go home edition of Friday Night SmackDown prior to the event. So
I'm hoping we can pull something out. I mean,
yeah,
I hate to say
yeah,
that I'm confident, but I definitely think if we just kind of scope out things like StubHub at the last second and, maybe wander around the city or something, who knows what we can find. I say it's definitely
yeah.
worth the effort to be down there when it's happening and just see what's going on. And if we can get something cool, and if not, then hey, it's a great thing about it being on digital now. We'll just go back to your house
Go
and
yeah.
start it over and watch it from the beginning. So that's fine. That's totally cool. So
I did look. The In Your House event was October 20th, 1996. So that
96. Okay,
is
so
what,
28.
28 years ago. Yeah,
28 years. Good God,
yeah.
that's forever.
So
And just to shit on some more wrestling news, WrestleMania next year got announced or was announced for Las Vegas, and they announced it for mid to late April, which was really exciting for about 10 minutes because this is I'm finally offset spring break and I'm so excited. I'm like, I can't believe it. I'm going to get to go to Cleveland and watch WrestleMania again. And if the WWE giveth, then the Lord taketh away, because they happen to squat this major event on Easter weekend. And I don't know what that looks like. I'm not going to assume that's going to work for anybody, but I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. Who puts a pay-per-view like that on Easter weekend? Like, that is absolutely bananas to me.
I I agree, and I'm looking at the Wikipedia entry for WrestleMania 41, and the last line of the first paragraph. This will also be the first WrestleMania to be held during Easter weekend.
So bad. So bad.
I I I agree. I guess what that tells us is the WWE doesn't give a shit about like they just don't. They're bigger than one religion. They're bigger than anything else. They feel that they are big enough that they can do that. I mean, and they're right. I mean, they're right.
Yeah, they're not going to sell any less
It'll it
tickets. They'll be fine.
No.
It'll
Yeah.
be in Vegas, which
So
is a place where probably people don't go to church a whole lot. I'm going to guess.
yeah.
I don't know. It is called Sin City. So, that's all they care about is selling the tickets. They don't care about the kid
Yes.
from Indiana who wants to drive to Ohio to watch the event with his best friend. It's not really that
Right.
kind of concern on
Right.
Triple H's part. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't rule it out, but I'll say it's going to be probably pretty difficult to make that work, I would assume.
Yeah.
So,
No. I agree. Okay. Well, hey, we'll take a pause on wrestling talk.
yeah,
I'm sure our
we
fan
should.
is sick of talking wrestling. So let's see. We really don't have a topic for tonight, and so I did, though, in between our texts from earlier today, where we decided we had no topic, and this evening when we started recording, I got an email that I wanted to read to you, and I wanted to get your take on it. So this was a journalism student that reached out to me via Scare Tissue, and she is writing a paper, presumably for I think one of her classes, and she wanted to get some input from me. And so she said, "Hello, the article I would like you to help out on is a feature about people wanting new staple horror movies. In other words, fresh blood on the horror throne. Of course, whenever the average person thinks of horror movies, they tend to think of characters such as Chucky, Freddy, Jason, etc., the original famous horror characters. What I'm going to write about is how, although we still respect the originals, they are getting slightly obsolete. Newer stories such as Us, Immaculate, The Black Phone, Hereditary, etc., could be good candidates for horror royalty. So, what I would like to ask you is to give you some of your opinions on these. What are your favorite modern horror movies? And if you had to crown one horror movie that is the best, classic or new, what would your pick be? Thank you for your time. I greatly appreciate it. This gal's name is Sadie, and so I wrote her back, and I will certainly let you know when I see her article, and I will post it on Scare Tissue, and I will share it out. But I thought it was an interesting question, and I would be interested to see kind of what your take was on that. Do you want to respond? Do you want me to read you what I wrote her first? Do you even care to talk about this? Is this even remotely interesting to you?
Oh no, it's a fascinating question, and
Yeah,
hope she listens to the podcast. You should send it to
yeah,
her just to see
I
if it
will.
gives her any other insight. But I think it's a great question, and I think as much as I hate to agree with her, she's right. I mean,
Hmm.
our horror icons of the past, the Elm Streets and well, maybe not as much the Halloweens, just because
Hmm.
they have done a more effective job of keeping that in the culture. But Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Exorcist is still floating around a little bit too, but you get my point. Like a lot of
Yeah.
these have kind of waned a lot in pop culture, period. I mean, guys like Freddy Krueger will be around forever just because of the creativity and ingenuity
Yeah.
from Wes Craven to create that character. But to be honest with you, these properties and franchises have been absolutely murdered, no pun intended, by, the all the battles over the rights and the properties and the studios and all this stuff because they can't get these movies made anymore. There's always some
Hmm.
kind of a fight or struggle or legal issue, and it's really crippled their ability to continue these franchises. And some of these guys, Robert Englund, he's too old to play Freddy Krueger at this point. He's said
Hmm.
that many times in interviews. So, yeah, and we've seen every one of these franchises attempted to get rebooted, and none of them have really clicked. Halloween is the only one that did a pretty good job, came out hot out of the gate, and then kind of fizzled maybe a little bit towards the end. If anybody wants to hear our retrospectives on that, please check the archives. But so yeah, I agree. I think that is the case, and I don't have any faith at this point that if they try to reboot any of these franchises again, that they're going to be any better because I just don't think the reboot thing is working. It can, but it has to be really special, and they haven't done it right yet. So as far as like new modern horror, I would say there are some great movies, but there, in my opinion, haven't been any great franchises yet. I don't know that there are any great modern franchises. I guess you could maybe count Scream if that's considered modern. I mean, that came out in the mid 90s at this point, which is
Hmm.
30 years ago. So is
Yeah.
that modern? I don't know. Probably not. The most modern or the most recent horror movie that I remember seeing that really truly blew me away was one that we've talked about on this podcast, which is It Follows. I thought that was
Hmm.
fantastic and creative, and you've never seen anything like that before. And I'm very, very thankful they never made a sequel. I think
Hmm.
that by the nature of it, these sequels are watering down these stories and they're just creating too much fluff. And I think the best horror movies that we're going to find these days are the one and dones. I think they're going to be the ones that have a single good story, have a beginning, have an ending. Maybe the ending is ambiguous, but that doesn't mean they need to make six more movies out of it and, create the same formulaic death scenes and storylines that, our heroes from the 80s did. So I guess I don't know if I
Yeah.
answered anything by what I just said. But I think it's a great conversation piece.
Yeah. So to if I had to put you on the spot, and she says if you had to crown one horror movie the best, classic or new, which would you pick? And I understand that that answer will differ 6 different days out of, like if you had to gun to your head, you had one right now tonight on May 9th, what would you pick?
Man, that is so incredibly difficult because you and I make it a point never to talk best. We usually talk
Yeah.
favorites
Favorite. Yeah.
because I won't pretend as many movies as I've seen, I won't pretend to understand the science or the process of making movies or what makes a good story, what makes a good director. Like, I mean, I think I've got some ideas, and I certainly have noticed my share of bad ones, but to say the best ones are, gosh, it's really tough. The first one that comes to mind is maybe The Exorcist. I don't know, just because of the time that it came out and the impact that it had on society and everything. And it truly is a terrifying movie, in my
Hmm.
opinion. So I mean, I think that's really good. I think the original Alien is a really
Hmm.
solid contender for that because that was more horror and less sci-fi than or certainly more horror slash sci-fi and less action, which is what
Yep.
the second James Cameron movie ended up becoming. So Alien which is celebrating an anniversary here coming up, is a fantastic movie. So I would say those. Jaws would be my go-to, but I don't think I consider Jaws a horror movie. That can be argued, I guess, but I don't know. I don't see it there. I consider it a suspense movie, but I don't know
Hmm.
if I would call it horror. I suppose if it is true horror, then it would be my favorite, but it would also be the smartest horror movie I think that has ever been made. Like the most cinematic movie. Like
Sure.
that is a film, right? That is
Yes.
everything that Spielberg did with that is truly meant to be on the big screen and enjoyed that way.
Yes.
So I don't
I
know. That's
agree with
that's
that.
off the top of my head. That's about as best I can do.
Okay.
But
No,
what do you what
that's
do you
totally fair.
think? I'm not going to let you off the hook. You got to pick one too. You're probably going to pick Halloween, aren't you?
You know what? It's funny. So here I will read to you what I wrote to her in response to specifically that question. I said quite some time ago I wrote an article ranking my all-time top 10 horror films. At the time of the writing, I listed Halloween 78 as number 1 and Exorcist 3 number 2. If I were to do this list today, those would still be my number 1 and 2, though that may actually be flip-flopped. If you look at the list written in 2013, there were 2 films from 2013 included The Conjuring and Evil Dead. I'm not sure there's been anything released that I put on my personal top 10 since then, with the possible exception of A Quiet Place, Us, or Smile. I said, all of that said, gun to my head on the spot, I'd pick Exorcist 3 as my all-time fave, but that may change tomorrow.
Hmm.
So right now today, and part of the reason for that is I just rewatched that film within the last 10 days and it just reignited my love. I love that. I just love I think I do think it's better than the original. I prefer it more than the original. Again, to your
Okay.
point, I won't say it's a better film, but I prefer it. It is my favorite by far.
Sure.
I also tended to agree with most of what you said in terms of the old franchises and those kind of things. What I will say is I think those franchises will continue to be recycled
Yeah.
as long as they make money. And the example, and you called it out, the example that I gave her was Halloween. Those last 3 Halloween films were the most financially successful Halloween films of the entire franchise. Even the third one that was kind of critically panned, and we talked about it too, that was still the number 3 Halloween film of all time. Now, granted, it's 30 years after the original and blah blah. I don't know what it would be if they were adjusted for inflation, but like that film still made over $100 million. And I think the original one, or 2018's Halloween, made something like $250 million. And so, like, as long as those films make money, they're going to continue to spin out Freddy and Jason and well, Chucky is on what? Is
Oh
it
God.
Netflix or?
Yeah, yeah, I don't remember what network it maybe
But
Hulu
it's
or
like
something.
it's doing
It's got a
it's doing
series that's
yeah.
apparently really good. Like people are
Yes.
talking about it like it's a really solid series. Now you gotta take it for what it is. I don't think
Yeah.
it's a true it's a very tongue-in-cheek horror movie. You know, it probably borrows a
I
lot of comedy,
yeah.
you know.
I tell you what though, I ran across a YouTube video not just 2 or 3 days ago of like some of the kills from that show. It looks legit. I mean, it does not look.
Is that right?
I mean, yeah. I mean,
Well, you
it
know,
was
Brad
bloody. And
Dourif is still voicing Chucky at
is he
this
really?
point.
I was
Yeah, the
wondering that.
same
Yeah.
actor
Yeah.
who's been in
From The
so
Exorcist
many things.
From The
From
Exorcist
The
Part Three.
Exorcist Part Three,
Yeah.
from a lot of really great movies, from Halloween Part Two, or Parts One and Two, the Rob Zombie
Yep.
ones.
He was Sheriff Brackett,
Sheriff
wasn't
Brackett,
he?
that is
Yeah.
correct. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's I thought that was interesting. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, there are definitely good modern horror movies out there. I mean, I saw Babadook. I thought that was really good.
I mentioned that in my email to her. Yep.
You talked about Cabin in the Woods
Yep.
previously, which is really solid. I also really liked Hereditary. That was creepy as shit.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Didn't make a lot of sense. Well, you know, I only watched it once and probably, you know, underneath the blanket. But
Right.
I like that. There was a movie called Barbarian that just came out. It's on
I heard that was
Netflix.
great. I
I
never got
liked
a chance
it.
to watch it.
I
Did you like
liked
it?
it. It was kind of weird.
Yeah.
But it was good. It was not what I thought it was going to be. The title is a little misleading.
Is it?
It's
Okay.
because it's not. It's you know it's very modern day everything. But
It's not William Wallace. It's not a Braveheart movie. It's
no,
not a barbarian movie.
I don't
Yeah.
believe it is. I even liked the first It movie. The second one I thought was terrible. The first one was good, considering how fucking ultra bizarre the source material is. I don't know if you've ever read the
Yeah.
book It, but it is fucking
It's been
weird.
30 years since I've read it. So yeah.
But the first movie, I thought they did a great job with that. And I
Yeah.
think I have heard they're going to come back with like a prequel series of when Pennywise was younger or whatever, and that's going to be on
Okay.
like Max or something. I don't know,
Okay.
Netflix maybe.
Well, and then and then I heard they were going to have, and I think it's a little bit up in the air. They were going to have a Friday the 13th series called Crystal Lake, and then I saw that it was canceled, and then I saw that it was back on. So I'm not really sure what the status of that one is. But I'll be honest with you, even though I love the Jason Voorhees character, I couldn't care less about his prequel story at all. Like that is just not appealing to me in the slightest. Am I
Well,
off base?
oh, no, not at all. That's them just trying to milk out of that property because, I mean, let's be honest, Friday the 13th, not the strongest story in the world. I
No,
mean,
no.
what's interesting if you watch Friday the 13th, or if you like, I'll use my own personal experience. Like growing up around Friday the 13th, you know that the bad guy is Jason Voorhees, but
Hmm.
the original Friday the 13th is probably not the first movie you saw in the series, and definitely wasn't the first movie I
Yeah,
saw in the series.
no, it wasn't.
So going back and watching the original one and finding out that it wasn't Jason, it was his mother, was a really fun twist, you know, down the road, even though it wasn't really planned that way. So yeah, I think that's interesting, but like there's not really any other story to it. It's just about a bunch of kids who always go to camp and smoke dope and have sex and get killed. And that's not a story. That's just it's an adventure and it's fun, but that's not a story. So I don't really see what they could attach to that to make it any more interesting. I think I would argue that I think a Freddy Krueger backstory or origin story could be more interesting. I know I'm partial to Freddy Krueger, but I just
Hmm.
think that character could be a little bit more dynamic than a little kid that drowns in a lake. That just doesn't seem like it has as much. Like, and they
Yeah,
tried to touch on that with the reboot of Elm Street back in 2010 or whatever, and it just didn't. It didn't take for many reasons. But I like the fact that they tried to kind of manipulate the backstory a little bit to be something more interesting.
yeah. There were, and I'm gonna see if I can find it real quick. There were some, um, I'll call them fan-made Freddy Krueger
Hmm.
short films.
I remember
Um,
those. You sent those to me.
they are outstanding. They're by the director is Chris Notarile, Notarile. I can't pronounce his name. they're really, really good. There's three or four of them, and I remember those, and they were like what you would call prequels to A Nightmare on Elm Street, and they're they're really, really good. Robert Lombardi plays Freddy Krueger, and I'll be honest with you, like those short films were strong enough that if they were to make those into feature films, or either combine them into one, I think that would be a really good prequel story. Yeah, I would agree though. I think I don't really care to see, because again, Jason, if you go by the kind of the canon version of that story, there was nothing special about him other than he drowned as a boy. Like there, you know what I mean? Like he wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean,
There
he
was no
drowned when he
story.
was
There
right.
was no
Yeah,
plot. There was no anything. It was just kids end up here,
yeah,
and the rest of the movie is him chasing them around.
yeah.
That's it. There were no. I mean, they tried to put in some background and some stuff, but it took them a couple movies just to even try.
And I guess the same thing can be said for Michael Myers, right? I really enjoyed the Rob Zombie, I'll call it prequel, his vision, his, where he showed Michael's how he became what he became. I I don't need anything else of Michael's backstory. I think Rob Zombie did a great job. In fact, I would have preferred, I actually liked not knowing Michael's backstory. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
actually liked that.
Well, there's something to
Um
be said
th-
about the mystery of it all, right?
yeah, yeah.
Because if you're trying to unravel that mystery for all these years and then somebody finally does it, it's almost always going to be disappointing
Mhm.
or at least unsatisfying.
Well, you know what? Yeah, and you'll appreciate that it's the Solo effect, right?
Right. Yeah.
That was a fine movie, but we didn't. There's a lot of stuff in there we didn't need.
Nope.
We didn't need to understand why he was named Solo. We didn't need to know where he got his gun and this and yeah, it was a good movie. And in fact, I would hope that I would like to see a sequel to that movie, but we didn't need the original. I guess is my
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. There's another movie I want to call out just in terms of quote unquote modern horror. There was
yeah.
one that I watched, I don't know, in the last year. It was called Let Me In, which is a movie. It's a vampire story, and
Oh
it
yeah.
came out in 2010, and it has Chloe Grace Moretz in it, who was in Kick-Ass, and she's been in a lot of stuff. The movie was really, really good. I was shocked by how much I liked it and was taken by it. It was directed by Matt Reeves, who did the new Batman, the latest Batman movie with Robert Pattinson in it. And I would definitely, if if anybody, if that girl who wrote the email is listening, or anybody else who's interested in just some different kind of horror movies, that
Hmm.
one was really good. I really liked it and would highly recommend it. Thought it was solid.
There was, is that, I could have sworn, is it Let Me In? Let Them In? Um, there is a French Let Them In. I'm looking to see if I can find it on Scare Tissue. I know I did a review on it, but do you know, was that a reboot or a remaking, retelling of, oh, Let the Right One In was a 2008 Swedish vampire movie. I'll bet you that is a remake of this film.
Probably so, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know
Um,
for sure.
yeah. I actually never watched the 20, did you say 2010?
2010. Yeah.
Yeah. I never watched that one. I bet I would like it because I really like that actress. I
You
like,
should.
yeah.
It's really good. It's very provocative. It's an entertaining movie. It's yeah, I won't spoil any
Okay.
of it, but I would say high recommend if you're in the mood for something you haven't seen yet. Well, I mean, I guess you've kind of seen it if you've
Yeah.
watched the other one, but it's different, but it's good.
Okay. What and I apologize. I said that I was going to try to see Ghostbusters by the time that we recorded next, and I have not had a chance to see it. So I'm guessing at this point I'm gonna have to wait for it to be on video, which kind of bums me out. But I did go to, since the last time we talked, I did go to Cleveland Comic Con. Um,
Oh, nice.
I
How
had
was that?
it was good. It was a good show. I had press credentials courtesy of Scare Tissue.
Mhm.
So I'd like to, which is always really cool. It was a good show. I didn't spend a ton of time there. I went down on a Friday afternoon on my way to a basketball game, and I spent maybe 2.5, 3 hours on the floor. Artist Alley was amazing. Some really talented comic authors, comic artists. a ton. There was a lot of sci-fi, a lot of Star Wars, a lot of lightsaber vendors, tons of masks, tons of action figures, a lot of horror represented, a lot of really, really good original art, original horror art, and then a lot of, and I don't know what you would call it, but like where people would be making their own versions of, you know, I'll call them prints, but it's a different version of a Nightmare on Elm Street poster or a different version of
Oh
a
yeah.
The Thing poster, those kind of things. I can't imagine that stuff is legal from a licensing perspective, but some of it is so cool. I mean, if I was going to spend my money on some stuff, that's the kind of stuff that I would spend it on. Those like
Yeah.
those one-off either, artist prints or what have you. But yeah, it was a great show. They're coming back again next year. This particular show, and I didn't have the time or the money to spend on it, but all four of the Hobbits were there,
Oh yeah.
doing appearances and photo shoots and stuff, which I thought would be cool. If I was a huge Lord of the Rings fan, that would be a really cool opportunity. And they were kind of like the headliners from a celebrity perspective. So I was glad that I didn't want to see, you know what I mean? Like I was glad that it wasn't, Robert Englund or like folks that I would, really
Something
would
different.
want to see. So yeah. So you got anything that you're looking forward to seeing this summer? Shows you're watching, movies you're looking forward to? I know you're crazy busy the same way I am this summer.
So as far as shows, I did start watching because I'm a big fan of the show The Boys on Amazon. I'm not sure if you've
Okay.
seen that or if, I can't remember if we talked about that one or not, but I absolutely love that show. It's very gratuitous, but it's
Mm-hmm.
it's so much fun. It's got great humor to it. It's got a great cast, everything about it. It's sort of takes a page out of the whole superhero book, but does so in a very NC-17 fashion. And
Yes.
I love that show a lot. The fourth season of that show is coming out this June. So I think in about a month. So I'm looking forward to that. And so I started watching, they had a spin-off show that came out, I think maybe last year called Gen V, which is basically a show in the same universe where it's a bunch of kids at a school specific to, the people who are, trying to be superheroes, basically. Kids
Mm-hmm.
who are injected with the V when they were really young and are trying to kind of become superheroes. So it's pretty good. It's the same sort of theme and graphic humor and all kinds of stuff as the boys show. So that's pretty good. I like that. I haven't seen too much else lately. I'd have to say, if anything, if there's one movie that I'm looking forward to this summer, it's Deadpool and Wolverine. I think that's going to be an
Yep.
absolutely fantastic movie. I will predict now, and I've made bold predictions here that have come true. I think it's going to be the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time, for sure. Domestic for sure, maybe, or I should say international for sure, probably domestic too. Um, I think it's going to be absolutely huge and is going to be, I hope, the thing that sort of turns the tide on the comic book movies back into a favorable direction. Because obviously, we've talked about how Marvel's kind of fallen off the map a little bit and it's
Mm-hmm.
not as interesting as it used to be. And even Kevin Feige's coming out and saying, hey, we've learned from our mistakes and things are going to be better and we're going to figure this out. So I think this is going to be the kickstart in the crotch of the Marvel universe to get everything pointed back in the right direction. So it, if I had to pick one that I really want to see more than anything, I think it's that. And
Yeah.
the one that I think will be the biggest flop of the summer is going to be the Crow reboot. I don't know if you've seen the trailer for that, but Jesus Christ, why are they continuing to ruin that franchise? Like it's terrible. I like
Yeah.
Bill
So that's
Skarsgård, but like that's just a terrible idea on every level.
is that a sequel or is that a reboot? Do you know?
That is I think that is a flat out reboot because I think he
of the Brendan Lee
plays.
movie.
Yeah, I think he plays
Okay.
Brandon Lee's character of Eric Draven. I believe it's a complete reboot, but it's
Okay.
like it looks like The Matrix meets, the Joker kind of
Yeah.
thing. I don't know what it is, but no, it's just I think it looks terrible and I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I'm not interested in
You're
that
not
movie at
thrilled.
all.
Yeah. Yeah. I will admit I'm not. I saw that trailer. I was not overly enthused by it. There are some other movies. Well, there are several movies that I'm much more excited to see than that one. Wolverine and Deadpool is certainly at the top of my list. Deadpool has got to be the number one R-rated movie currently, right?
No, it is absolutely
No,
not. Well, so
no.
it depends on whether you're talking about domestic or international. The
Okay.
Hold on, let me pull this up because I want to be accurate. So the number one highest grossing R-rated film of all time is actually The Joker, which
Oh, okay.
pulled in over $1 billion. And Oppenheimer apparently has pulled in just under $1 billion. So that's number one and number two. Number three is Deadpool 2. Number four is Deadpool. So
Okay.
that's kind of where they sit. Now, I don't know if what I'm reading is actually international or
Okay.
domestic, but it's that's kind of where that sits. So the Passion of the
Okay.
Christ is listed as making 600 million world. Okay, so these are worldwide grosses. Pardon my
Okay.
misunderstanding. So I believe the Passion of the Christ. No, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, no, no, no. That's right. That's right. So the Passion of the Christ, I believe domestically is the highest grossing R-rated movie
Okay.
of all time.
Okay.
I was going to say The Force
Um,
Awakens, but that's obviously not R-rated, but that is the domestic highest grossing domestic movie of all time.
The Force Awakens is?
The Force
Okay.
Awakens is. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I'm very much looking forward to Deadpool and Wolverine. I will admit I'm more excited though about Deadpool than I am Wolverine. Like at this point, I'm kind of over Wolverine. I can't get enough Deadpool. I love that character. I think Ryan Reynolds is like was born to play that character. But and again, that's not to say that I don't love Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. It's just I've seen him more in that
Sure.
character. So
Yeah. But he'll do a great
um
job and he'll be a great
he
supplement to that
he
story.
absolutely yes, he will.
And there
And
will
I
be
and I think
so many fourth walls broken to talk about Kevin Feige and to talk
yes,
about, like, I mean, you've seen the trailer when he calls himself Marvel Jesus. Like
yes,
they're already poking fun at Marvel and how they have not done very well lately. So
yes,
like it's
yeah,
it's gonna be so in your face, it's gonna be brilliant.
yeah. I am from a horror perspective. I'm intrigued by The Crow. I'm not excited by it. I'm intrigued by it. I'm excited for the next Strangers movie, which I believe is a prequel. I think it's called The Strangers Chapter One, maybe. Um, I really enjoyed the Strangers films, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm really looking forward to Twisters.
Oh, I knew you
In
were gonna say that. Come on, man. You're
I
better than
love
that.
that first. I love that first film. I do. It's a stupid
Oh
turn your
man.
brain off popcorn movie. I enjoy it.
That's fair.
Yeah,
That's totally fair. I just like
I'm
the fact that they're naming a sequel to a movie called Twister and they're naming it Twisters is just
sure.
like the laziest thing I've
Yes.
ever
Yeah.
heard. But
Um,
whatever.
yeah.
That's cool.
I'm mildly interested in Beetlejuice.
Oh, I'm actually
Um,
really interested in that.
yeah.
I don't know
I
why, but I will absolutely see that opening weekend.
so I'm under the impression I think I only saw the trailer once. It's in the same universe. It is still Beetlejuice.
Hmm.
I can't imagine Alec Baldwin is going to make an appearance in that movie with all the shit he's going through. But
No.
like, but I think they reference. I don't know. I thought maybe they because I mean Winona Ryder's in it, right?
Yeah, Winona Ryder's in it. Catherine O'Hara
O'Hare,
is in it.
yeah. Is
Uh,
Jeffrey
I doubt that very
probably not?
seriously.
Probably not.
I don't think Jeffrey has made a comeback since the whole pedophilia thing.
Yeah.
That's a little bit iffy, but
So you
no, I
got
mean,
you got pedophilia and you got a murderer with
well,
Alec
yeah,
Baldwin. Yeah.
yeah, you got that stuff. Gina Davis, I don't believe is going to be in it.
Okay.
I think it made more sense to just write out the Dietzes all together.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Which makes sense. That's fine.
if you can't have both of them, then it doesn't
Yeah.
really make sense to have one of them. Now, of
Yeah.
course, they could be lying, and they could. I would be honest, if I saw Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis side by side in that movie, I'd be really excited. I think that would
Yeah.
be great, but I don't think that's going to happen. And I don't
Yeah.
think you're really going to need it because Michael Keaton's going to take up all the screen time, and Jenna Ortega is in it as Winona Ryder's daughter, and she's going to be fantastic because I mean she was born to play that.
Yes.
If Wednesday Adams was, you know, if she was typecast for that, then I mean, hey, this is going to
For
be
sure.
a slam dunk for her.
Let's see. We're getting a little bit further into the summer or the fall. The next you mentioned Joker, the sequel to Joker is coming in October. What do you think about that? Good, bad, overreach? I mean, it's got Lady Gaga. It's got I don't know. I mean, for me, I think you said everything you needed to say with that last Joker movie, in my opinion. I
I,
understand why they're making it, but I wouldn't make it.
it doesn't need a sequel. The first
Yeah.
movie absolutely did not need a sequel. And I honestly think this one will be really popular. I mean, it's again, just mentioned, it's the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time.
Yeah.
It'll be brilliant, I'm sure. I do not get excited about seeing Lady Gaga act, and I don't
Yeah.
know how I'm going to feel about her being the Harley Quinn of this universe. I'm sure it'll be well performed, but it will probably be another one just like the original Joker where I'll go see it, but that'll be the first and only time that I ever check it
Yeah.
out because I just
Yeah.
don't think it's going to be that interesting. But
Okay.
what about
Um,
though? What about there's one other movie that we haven't touched on that I think none of us will get our hopes up for, but all of us will probably try to check it out. In July, we will see the release of Beverly Hills Cop Part 4 with
so
Eddie Murphy.
I was waiting to talk to you about this.
Okay.
So I asked a question on Twitter the other day, and I'll ask you. So that movie is being released only on Netflix. It's not going to the theaters.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is probably a function of, well, I'll take a step back. Years ago, that would have been a function of the movie houses not thinking that that movie could carry itself in the theater, that it wasn't quote unquote good enough to be released in the theater. I think about things like the latest Texas Chainsaw Massacre that went directly to Netflix, which I enjoyed, but I understand why they put it directly to Netflix. So I guess the question is in 2024, for a franchise like that I think you can make the real argument that that movie would, I think, do really well in the theater, in my opinion, as a or it would, it wouldn't flop. Now I say that and the Fall Guy flopped. So, but we'll put that aside. I'm looking forward to Beverly Hills Cop. I think with the OG cast, because you've got Bogomil, you've got
Yeah.
what's the other cop's name?
Judge Reinhold, John Ashton,
Yeah.
Paul Reiser, and I think
I mean,
Bronson Pinchot's coming
I
back
mean,
as well.
it's the OG cast from the first one plus Bronson from the second one. I'm really looking forward to that movie. So this is another in the line of like sequels that come back 30 years later, right? And we've talked about that a bunch of these on the podcast. But I guess the question that I asked is like, what do we make of the fact that they're only releasing that one on Netflix in 2024? Have we just gotten to the point where movies in the theater are is a dying breed and there's more value in for them to put them on Netflix? Like what does that say about the movie industry? I'm of the opinion, I think the movie industry, and I know it pains you to hear me say, I think it's dying and I don't think it's coming back.
I think it's dying, but I don't think it will be dead. I think it
Okay.
would take an awful lot to kill it off. I think of it like vinyl, right? So like
Yeah.
um vinyl, obviously, with the advent of cassette tapes and CDs and digital music, nobody thought that was ever coming back. And there is a huge, huge, huge resurgence in vinyl right
Yeah.
now. And I think the same thing is going to happen with movie theaters and films and seeing things like that. Um, but I will agree with you that we are at a tough time for that kind of stuff right now with all the streaming services, and COVID really fucked so many.
Oh yeah.
COVID was the sort of the adrenaline needle in the heart that really helped to push that along. Like we've been afraid of movies being, written off as irrelevant for a while, or the theater experience being written off as irrelevant ever since digital streaming came about.
Hmm.
But when COVID came about and then we couldn't get people to the movie theaters,
Yeah.
that became a huge issue. And that's when HBO Max was releasing stuff directly to their platform. Was it the fourth Matrix movie, which
Yep.
it's the fourth Matrix movie. Say what you want about it, but like that 100% should have been exclusively in the theaters. But because of COVID and how things were worked out, they ended up putting it on HBO. So, I guess to get back to your question, I don't think this franchise has as much pull as maybe you might be suggesting. I don't know that it would do that well if it went exclusively to the theaters. I
Okay.
only because I can't think of another example, and please correct me, and you probably would right away, of another series like this that's a comedy specifically that I mean, maybe Bad Boys, I guess. I don't know. How did Bad Boys 3 do? They've got Bad Boys 4 coming out here pretty soon. I don't know how Bad Boys 3 did in the theater. I guess it must have done okay because otherwise they wouldn't be making a fourth one. But I would
Right.
I would challenge somebody to come up with a good case study for what kind of comedy can they like. They did this with Halloween, in the
Hmm.
horror genre. What in the comedy genre can they do this with, that they can bring this back 30, 40 years later and have it sell tickets, not be good, but have it
Yeah.
sell
I
tickets?
mean, I mean, the examples. So we'll take those questions in order. Bad Boys 3 did $426 million in the box office on a
Okay,
budget of 90 million.
that's
So
pretty
that's, I
good.
mean, that's pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
The movies that come to mind that they did that with are Ghostbusters, are Indiana Jones,
Not a
which
comedy
uh,
though.
no.
I'm thinking more specifically about comedies because I
About
think that is
comedies.
different. I do think it's different
Yeah,
because
well, you know what? You're right, and I think here's the difference. Comedy in film in general is dead. Like there are
it's
not,
hard.
you
It's
know what I
really
mean? Like
hard.
you
Yeah.
can't because you're in this kind of like, for lack of a better term, but you'll understand the woke world, right? You can't like you just can't say stuff. Like there's a bunch of comedies, and we've even done podcasts about it, like shit that you couldn't make today.
Yeah.
Hilarious movies, like they just don't go there, right?
Right.
I mean,
Not in
like
a
what's the
mainstream fashion.
yeah,
Yeah.
like what's the last great comedy film that you can think of?
The
Like,
40-year-old version.
well, yeah, like
Yeah.
I was gonna
Or
go
maybe
old school. I was gonna go
Anchorman.
old school,
Yeah.
but yeah, but like when are those films are all early 2000s,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Ish. So you're talking 20 years, 25 years ago.
Right.
Um,
That's a
so
good
yeah,
point.
that's
The genre in general is hard to sell in a theater because you don't
yeah,
have to go to the theater to get a laugh, to appreciate the experience. You got to go to the theater to to give a shit about Avatar, right? I think,
yeah,
which I still don't. But yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting question. But I think it will be one of those movies where we'll watch it and we'll probably say, yeah, it was good. I got a few chuckles out of it. It was
yeah,
fine. I didn't, I wouldn't have paid $25 to go see it in the movies, but I'm glad I got to watch it for free on Netflix. And, I doubt it will reinvigorate my love for the franchise, considering it's also following, the worst movie that they put out.
yeah, yeah. Okay. The only other like upcoming release I'm just kind of going through that like really jumps out to me, and it's not even that I'm excited about it. There's a new Quiet Place movie. I don't know. I mean, like I'm
It,
sure that will be made well.
is that
I
a
don't know that we need to.
sequel or is that
It's called
a,
Quiet Place Day One, and I'm pretty sure John Krasinski is in it, which means it's got to be a prequel. Spoiler alert. No, you know what? He's not in it. He wrote it, so maybe it's not. Um, He's not actually listed in the cast, so he's listed at yeah. So maybe I'm wrong. Says tagline: "Hear how it all began." Paramount has stated this is not a continuation of part two, but more of a spinoff. Okay. So, anyways, that comes in June, and then Transformers One, which I know you're not a huge fan of the Transformers franchise. I could not be less enthused of that trailer
Mm,
than I was, and I know you and I traded a couple texts. I couldn't care less. I'm
yeah.
not excited about that at all.
It has a very different theme to it than the other stuff, which I
Yeah,
actually thought was kind of interesting because it kind of takes it away from the sort of self-important Michael Bay ones that
yeah,
took themselves a little too seriously sometimes,
yep,
and put a different spin on it. But I don't know if it fits with the theme of the show. So yeah, it's that one might be weird, but I would probably give it a watch just to see what happens. I don't know when
yeah.
the new Mission Impossible movie is coming out, the sequel to Dead Reckoning. I would like to
Okay,
see that very much, but I that's not this year. I think
okay.
that's probably next year at the earliest. That one got kind of hosed with COVID too, I think.
Oh, did it really? Okay.
Yeah.
There's a new. Is there a new Alien movie coming out? Alien Romulus?
Yes, yes. There's so Alien Romulus is, but I think what I heard was that it takes place 30 years before the original Alien movie. So
No.
Prometheus
Okay.
and Alien Covenant both took place many, 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 many years before
Yep.
Aliens, Alien 3. This one, I think, butts up closer to the original Alien
Okay.
movie.
Okay. I gotcha. Okay.
So, I'm kind of a sucker for those. Like, I know that there's not, the argument could be made that those are kind of like Friday the 13th. There's not really much story. It's just like you find yourself on a ship and there's an alien and all that stuff. But there's something about that one, that series that I really do like. I even like Alien 3, and I feel like a lot of people didn't like that movie. But it was
Yeah.
yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'll watch that. I liked Prometheus too, which a lot of people hated, but I thought it was I liked it.
I only saw it once, but I remember enjoying it.
Yeah.
I will admit that I'm not a huge fan of the Like, I mean, I like the Alien movie, but like that's not my go-to. You know, but I remembered enjoying that. Did you see? Are you a fan of the Dune franchise? I don't know that we've talked about Dune.
I did actually just this week for the first time in probably months go to the theater, and I did watch the second Dune movie. Yeah.
What'd you think?
I liked it. I thought it was really good. It's really well
Yeah,
done. I mean, it's kind of obnoxious. I mean, they're both like 2.5 hour long movies, but they're
yeah,
beautiful movies. They're very well shot. The stories are, I think, very interesting. It's very sci-fi, so you got to put on that hat to be able to enjoy it. But no better cast movie that I think I've seen in years. Short of maybe some of the Marvel stuff. But yeah, I liked it. I thought it was really good. I did not read the Frank Herbert, I think is his name, the
yep.
books. I never saw the original David Lynch movie, so I don't know anything about it before these movies came out.
Okay.
But I liked them. I thought both the first movie and the second one were really good. And my understanding is that they're making a third movie that will probably come out next year.
Oh,
And
okay.
I'd be really excited to watch that. I think it'd be really good.
All right. Well, let's see. Summer's going to be interesting. Um, we got wrestling coming up. We got movies coming up. I know you're crazy, but you got any travel coming up other than coming here in August?
I will
Got
be
any
there
vacations or anything?
in June for the Rolling Stones and then
Oh,
back in
that's right. Yeah.
August. So I'll make a couple of Cleveland trips this summer, which I'm excited about.
Okay.
Nothing else though. No, it's going to be a pretty slow summer, I think.
Well, if you want to come in the Monday before, Sammy Hagar is in at Blossom on the Monday before SummerSlam.
Ooh,
If you want to make a week out of it, you're more than welcome.
man, if I were single, don't let my wife hear this,
Yeah.
but that's okay. She doesn't listen to this podcast. She thinks it's nerdy. Um, Yeah, I would. Oh man, I would love to. I would
Yeah.
love to make an excuse, and I probably could from a work perspective if I really wanted
Well,
to.
there you
But
go. Hey, maybe you go to Columbus for an evening and then you just pop up 2 hours just to blossom, and then you're back by 1 o'clock in the morning.
Man, I would love to do it.
Something to think about.
If I were a single guy, I could pull it
Yeah.
off. But you know what? SummerSlam is worth the trip. I'll sacrifice the Sammy show for the opportunity to get to hang out with you guys.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to that. That's not until August. We're sitting here on May the 9th. So I would imagine we got to get at least 2 episodes in before that. So this is episode 91. Yeah, we definitely, I think, will get to 100.
Oh,
we
we're
got to
getting
make sure
there.
we get to 100 in 2024 for sure.
We're going to get there. The
Yes.
bigger challenge is going to be, what are we going to do for our 100th episode? Like,
I don't know.
It's going to have to be something pretty epic, so that both of our fans really appreciate the fact that, you know, we've put all this effort into this podcast.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, we can think about that. We can brainstorm about that. Maybe we can even have a live planning session podcast when you are here in August. How about that?
Oh, I love it. I'm already
Sounds
planning
good?
it. Sounds great.
All right. That being said, that's Mr. Pip. I'm Chewie. This is the 411 from 416. We'll talk to you soon. Aloha.
Adios.